All right, today we're going to dig into something really interesting from our source material. Why some people seem to value their own personal achievements way more than, traditional celebrations. Let's get right into it.
Have you ever had that one friend, or maybe a coworker, heck, maybe it's even you, who just doesn't make a big deal about their own birthday? Or New Year's Eve? It's kind of weird, right? We're calling it the birthday paradox, and it boils down to a really simple question. Why would someone ignore a day that's supposed to be all about them?
So your first thought is probably, oh, they're just a Grinch or they don't like to have fun. But the material we're looking at today offers a totally different take. It suggests this has nothing to do with being antisocial or unhappy. Nope, it's about a really fundamental difference in what a person actually chooses to value and celebrate in their life. Okay, so if it's not about being a Grinch, then what is it about? Well, it all comes down to a different value system, one that measures life not by dates on a calendar, but by actual deeds.
And this is really the heart of the whole thing. For people who think this way, celebrating a date just because the calendar says so can feel, well, kind of empty. What really matters, what has real weight, is tangible personal progress. It's less about celebrating another trip around the sun and way more about what you actually achieved on that trip. So this basically sets up two totally different ways of measuring your life. You've got the calendar on one side and personal progress on the other. Let's really break down what that looks like. Okay, so let's put these two ideas right next to each other. On one side, you've got calendar rituals. These are the things society tells us are important, right? They're often tied to kind of arbitrary dates, and the celebration itself is pretty passive. You just have to show up. But on the other side, you have internal milestones. These are personally defined. You get to decide what matters. They're all about earned achievements and represent active progress that you had to work for. It really shows the difference between being handed a reason to celebrate and creating your own.
So why? Why do some people lean this way? Well, it often comes from having a more analytical mindset, one that's always looking for what feels genuine and meaningful. Let's talk about why progress can feel so much more real than just another date on the calendar.
So what are we really talking about when we say internal milestone? It's more than just hitting a goal. It's a major point of personal progress that's validated by your own effort and what you accomplished. Like finally running that 5K, or wrapping up a super complex project at work, or mastering a new skill. The feeling of accomplishment comes from the work you put in, not from a pop-up reminder on your phone.
See, from this point of view, the progress you earn, that feels real. That feels solid. Calendar dates, as our source material says, can just feel like arbitrary social constructs. So when you have to choose between a party the calendar tells you to have and that deep satisfaction of hitting a milestone you truly fought for, the analytical mind is almost always going to go for that genuine feeling of accomplishment.
And this isn't just some random personality quirk. This focus on earning your milestones is actually a super common trait you see in highly driven, successful people. Let's take a look at why that is.
Just think about the path to one of these internal milestones. It's a totally active process. First, you set a goal. Then you put in the work. Then you finally achieve it. And then, and this is key, you actually take a moment to acknowledge that progress. Every single step is deliberate. This is not about just waiting around for a date to show up. It's about actively creating your own reasons to celebrate. So this whole drive, this need to create and celebrate your own milestones, it becomes this powerful engine for growth. It directly ties your feeling of reward to your own efforts, and that's exactly why you see it so often in high achievers. They're constantly setting that next milestone, which creates this amazing cycle of continuous improvement and earned satisfaction.
So I want to leave you with a question. Just forget about the calendar for a second, and really ask yourself, what was the last milestone you truly, genuinely earned? And maybe more importantly, what's the next one you're going to set for yourself? Thanks for digging into this with me.